It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ife Muyiwa-Ojo, who is going to speak with us about beyond recruitment, leadership, accountability for retaining and advancing men in nursing. Very, very important topic because we do need more men in nursing to work with us to increase patient outcomes. So please welcome Dr. Ofo.
And the clickers on it. Good, good morning. I know that we're all here today. We're mostly leaders, and that's why we're in a leadership conference. And I know that most people are here to listen, and there's another set of people here that are here to catch up with their emails. Okay, so I would forgive you if I see you doing that. That's okay. All right, my name is Ife Muyiwa-Ojo, associate professor in at Springfield, St. John's College of Nursing. I teach health assessments, I teach leadership, I teach pathophysiology, and I teach it at all levels. I teach it at bachelor's level, I teach at master's level, and doctoral level. And so today, the point that I'm trying to make is going to be on leadership. And leadership in the lens of I want to change the directive. I want to change the direction the way that we look at leadership. We look at retention, and we look at the nursing shortage, because this is something that everyone talks about. Nursing shortage, right? Nursing shortage. Have you ever asked yourself how many nursing schools are there in the United States today compared to like 10 years ago? So, do we have a nursing shortage? Okay, that's going to be the center of our talk today. How do you move this forward? The green one. Oh, there you go. Ah, okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start my talk today by saying something that's a little provocative, and I hope that you guys forgive me if it doesn't agree with what you believe. But I strongly believe that we do not have a shortage problem. What we have is a retention problem that we're failing to lead. Now, if you take a look at the diagram there, you will see that the status quo, we have turnover, but how much is burnout contributing to it? A lot. And we have somehow decided that the way to take care of burnout, or to take care of turnover, is to recruit more. If you look around, that's what we're doing. We're recruiting more. We're trying to get rid of the problem. And I liken it to, like, if you think about how somehow you think that you look at your pockets and you don't have a lot of money, and you go like, I need money to do this. I need to go on a vacation. I need to do this. I need to do that. And the first thing that comes to your mind is, let me get some extra work. Let me do some extra job. Let me find something else to do, But you only have 24 hours, right? You got to sleep, okay? And you're already working 16 hours, and you're still thinking of more work, does that solve your problem? It does not. And that's what we do as leaders. We're trying to get rid of a problem by trying to increase the pipeline and trying to get more people in, when really we should be thinking about how do we sustain the people that are already here. So, the way to fix a problem is to define it correctly. That's the first thing to do, right? How do we frame that problem so that we can drive investment in it? If we think about the nursing shortage in terms of pipeline alone, then what are we going to do? We're going to recruit more, we're going to fill slots, we're going to keep doing that. We've been doing that for so long, and it's not really solving the problem. How do we change that? How about thinking about retention, putting our focus on retention, right? Develop, support, and stabilize. And do not forget that word, stabilize, okay? Stabilize the environment. Hiring without retention is motion without stability. So, if you look at the healthcare environment, you will see that turnover is rising, we know that. Teams are stretched thin, heavy emotional load. And if you look at nurses, you see in their faces sometimes. Nurses that come to leadership conferences, they've taken their time to relax a little bit. So if you look at the faces around you now, they're relaxed. But you go to the hospital and look at nurses' faces. You would see the emotional load. It's very, very heavy. Burnout is accelerating. Managers, faculty, new nurses, they're all exhausted because we feel the brunt. So, and we're looking at the pipelines to leadership. When you lose your employees, when you lose people that are promising, people that should, funnel into this these leadership positions, and we see them leaving, well, what's going on? Your leadership is thinning, and you're losing the ability to mentor new people. In many settings, 30 to 50% of nurses report significant burnout. 30 to 50%. So, what I'm saying here is this. You hire 10 people, 5 people of them are feeling burnout. We are hiring. It's not that we're not hiring, but we're not stabilizing. That distinction really matters. So, what do we lose when a nurse leaves early? We've heard so many speakers talk about, today mostly, if you don't like it here, you can leave, right? But leaders that say that don't sit down to ask themselves the question, what does that really mean? What is the impact on the people that I'm talking to? What do we lose, really, when nurses leave? We lose experience. You sit down as a leader, you ask yourself. I recently, in my organization, one of my professors just decided that she was leaving. Very tenured professor, very respected, and suddenly she said she was leaving. She was discontent about something. But when she said she was leaving, the first thing everybody said was, what? who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Who's going to do the clinical rotations? Who's going to do all this? That's the first thing that we all thought. So sometimes when she was there, we took her for granted, right? Oh, yeah, she'll do it, And then suddenly she said she was leaving, and everybody woke up and said, oh, who's going to do all that? So we're losing experience, we're losing continuity, because knowledge walks out the door, and team trust resets. Okay, so everybody's now sitting down and asking themselves, hey, Are we going to be able to survive, if she leaves with all that knowledge, you know? Then future preceptors are lost. Imagine a new person comes in, and this person that was leaving happens to be the preceptor. Do you know how much download of information that's going to go to that new person? So you find that new person being very active, being very smart at, understanding the organization. It's because they had a good preceptor, and this preceptor just left. How do you mentor or precept a person new with someone that's just spent 6 months in the organization? Is that a good thing to do? And sometimes that's what we risk when we say those things. You never have managers emerging because you're turning over new people all the time, right? So, and time and resources, energy shifts to replacement. You just spend your time now recruiting. You spend so much energy recruiting and trying to get new people in. You're putting all the money into adverts and all that, and you're trying to get something so people in, when really you should be, consolidating. Leadership potential is wasted. So, this numbers here has showed up a little earlier today with Brit, right? Mine is like a little bit, you were pretty precise. Mine is, ballpark. But this is about what she showed too. $40,000 to $64,000 is what it cost us to replace an RN. And when you find organizations that understand that, you see them talking about bring your friends and bring your family. It's not because they like you or they like your family. It's because they're trying to bring down the cost of recruiting. Because a lot of the cost is about advertising, trying to get at people, trying to get them in and all that. But if you do bring your friend, it's a little cheaper for us. So we give you $5,000 for that. What are we trying to save? Close to $64,000. And annually for hospitals, it's about 3.6 to 6.5 million of loss that's written off because of turnover. And when we spend time and money and energy replacing what we could have retained, what does that mean to our budgets? Because I know that CFOs, CEOs, they sit down most of the time, they think about that bottom line, the numbers. But then, if you really look at it, you really want to talk about bottom line, well, what should you be concentrating on? Turnover is what you should be concentrating on. Okay, so now you ask yourself, why men in nursing? Why am I using this as a lens? Well, if you ask that question, take a look at me. Okay, that's your number one answer. The other answer is this: men are diagnostic signals. Okay, the truth is that if you look at men in nursing, which you would say men in nursing is actually, they are a minority, right? We only represent about 10 to 12% of the working force. So we're a minority. The other minorities in nursing. So I could have chosen any minority, but I chose the one that's closest to my heart. Sorry about that. All right, so that's why I'm talking about men. So I want to make one categorical statement today. This is not a diversity talk. This is a leadership retention talk and leadership design. What I want you to understand is this. Men traditionally have not been in nursing, we know that. The funny thing is when I look back into nursing's history, men had been involved in nursing for a very long time. It's just that for some reason, role-based reasons or social norms and stuff like that, made men pull back a little, But then those barriers have been breached these days. So we're at a point where men do not really have those barriers to join nursing anymore. So the question is, why don't we have men flooding into nursing? Are they coming? are they staying? We're getting them to some respect, but are they staying? That's a good question to ask. So I'm going to be looking at it from the men's angle. So pardon me. So some of the common leadership errors that we see, we say that if we recruit more, we solve the shortage. I said it earlier on, right? But if you don't retain who you're getting in, what's the point, right? You're wasting so much money to get people in, and you're not using that money judiciously because they're going away and you're doing it again. All the trouble, if you've sat through interviews, you would know that they're pretty grueling. For the people who are interviewing and the people who are, being interviewed, it's never a very easy thing. So you hire, you onboard, you train them, spend so much money getting them in, and then you replace them. And then you start all over again. That is not workforce growth. That is workforce recycling. And people do not stay where they feel invisible. Invisibility, if it persists in an organization, is the fault of the leaders. So, let's talk about mentorship and the decision to stay. Why do people leave? Why do people stay? How many people leave and how many stay? And when there's this Muir, Olson, and Stimfel study that shows us that 58.9% of mentees say the reason why they decide to stay in nursing was because they had mentorship. 58.9%. But there's a demographic that we're really very concerned about. That demographic is nurses within the first and second year. That is where we have the highest churn. And they say, 70% of them say that the reason why they've stayed in nursing is because they have mentorship. So, when people feel supported, they stay. That's the thing that we need to know. When they feel supported, they stay. That is not a soft finding. It's a leadership lever that we need to pull. We have to understand that people make decisions to stay and to go based on how supported they feel. And so, we bring the talk to retention. How do we retain nurses? How do we keep nurses? I'd love to sing Brit's song today. But if you think about it, there's a bucket. We have a bucket in the healthcare, in nursing. We made holes around the bottom of the bucket. And we do so much work filling up the bucket. And we wonder why we continue to fill the bucket forever. But the holes, that's how the water is leaving. Retention lives in the daily experience of the workforce. The daily experience of the workforce is anchored by leadership. So, if you think about the things that, I know a lot of people would say, on a dashboard, we have retention on it. We have strategic plans that have retention on these things. We sit down in the boardroom and talk about retention. The question is, retention, spoken about in those places, does it translate to retention on the units? If it did, then we would not be talking about this. How people are oriented and coached is important. What leaders normalize and tolerate is important. What leaders reward is important. Whether development is designed or accidental is very important. But our risks are, we always discuss retention more than we design it. There's no ownership. Who owns retention? Can you look at your organization and tell me, who do you think owns retention in your organization? Is it HR? Is it the CNO? Is it Is it a nurse manager? Who do you think owns retention? Kind of think about it. Who in your organization, if you feel that there's retention or lack of retention, who do you think owns it? Does anybody know? Is it HR? Kinda? They only work on metrics. They like to put metrics together. Yeah. And they like to fire people. But who else? The nurse leaders, chief nursing officer. So the truth is that someone has to own it for retention to actually be functional. Then we always see some of the risks that we see is no intentional opportunity audit within organizations. So when people start leaving before they leave, what does that mean? What that means is that if you have someone that says, I'm dropping my badge today and I'm walking out, was that decision made today? How long ago do you think it's been made? Sometimes a year. It's a process. And I'm going to talk about that process. It's never something that was done in an instant. Okay? But what do we do as leaders? We start to attack the smoke. We leave the fire. And we wonder why it's not working. You can kill the smoke as much as you want. The fire is still there. The fire started 1 year ago. You see the smoke now, and then you're saying, I'm gonna quench that smoke. The fire is there, just burning. So, and 12 to 18 months is really what it takes for people to get to that point. It's not a lack of commitment or anything like that. And if you look at that figure that I have there, as I said earlier on, you have people that live in 1 year, you have about 30%. But between 1 and 2 years, that's the most. Almost half of your workforce leave within 2 years. And if you think about it, I train a lot of nurses. And when I walk into the hospital, I feel proud when I see them. They're all beaming with smiles, and they're ready to work and work themselves to death, because they want to make that money and buy that BMW. And I see them walking, and I go, yes, that's good. And the next year that I come back, they're not there. My new nurses are there again, kind of walking, they want to go, I see them and say, oh my God. So they're all moving out. We train so many nurses. Some of them actually move out of nursing entirely. Some of them go to other places. We appreciate the fact that nursing is a very great profession where you can do so many things. It's one of the things that attracted me to nursing. I was not planning to be a nurse. Never, ever had planned to be a nurse. I was a computer engineer for about 20 years. And I only ventured into nursing because I wanted to know something about healthcare so that I can code for healthcare. That's all I came here to do. That's all I came to do. Just wanted to know something about healthcare. I considered doing medicine, and they told me, 12 years. I was like, 12 years? Oh, yeah, I don't have that. I just do nursing, So, I came to nursing and discovered that there's so much in nursing that you can do. And that's what anchored me, and that's why I'm still in nursing. And nurses realize that. Within 1 to 2 years, they're moving out, going to do something else in nursing, and sometimes even outside of nursing. So the real loss begins when people stop believing they're worth investing in. And if you look at the cycle that people go through before they say, I'm quitting. The first thing they do is they disengage, okay? So interest and effort just fade away. You see them just kind of walking in, and someone demonstrated it, just walk in, do the work, and walk back. And that was Dr. Hedges that did that this morning. You walk in, you walk out. They start to do that, and then eventually they disconnect. When they disconnect, your team starts to weaken. And before you know it, they leave. When they're leaving, they have gone through this cycle. If you're trying to attack or mitigate the reason why people leave, and you work on the fact that oh, this person is leaving today. They started leaving like a year ago. Have you started to work on that? So it brings up the concept of a stay interview. Okay? So we do an exit interview, we do an intake interview, but we never do a stay interview. Why? What are the things people are seeing and feeling while they're working in the organization? Do we ever think about those? We talk about interviews, but we're not using them correctly. You get them in, you get them out. Well, think about keeping them in. So stay interviews are really very, very important. And if you think about what pushes people away, some of the things that people have talked about over time, role stereotyping, where related tasks narrow identity and signal limited growth. Seriously, what that is, oh, Jane, I know you're good at, you know, putting folies in. You'll be our foley puttery. And so you're putting the folies, you're good at it and everything, but at the end of the day, you're thinking to yourself, am I growing? I'm not growing. What's going on here? So eventually the person decides, look, I'm going to find something else because it seems like they look at me and they see folies. I think I better go. Isolation without support. And this is very important because you could be in an organization where you know that maybe you don't belong or something like that, or you're different or something. There's so many reasons why people feel that way. But are you supported though? The difference, the person feeling different is not the problem. Never has been the problem. The real problem is that they're not being supported. So we gotta think about that. On equal opportunity, and this is anecdotal because people just kind of, a lot of people would go and we have ways of identifying who we want to move forward and who we feel would move forward. Sometimes it's just a human nature, right? But that lead sometime to an equal opportunity. So you find some people just having all the opportunity and some people do not even have opportunities at all. Low equity and transparency sometimes because we're not transparent with what we're doing. We just call one person and say, you would be this, you would be that. We're not transparent about how we're doing this. Are we going through and checking everybody and saying, this person would be good at this, this person would be good at this? Are we doing that? Or we're just cherry picking people and saying, you will go forward? Evaluation bias sometimes. Same behavior, but the different judgment. So, and then invisible culture signals. Sometimes we repeat cues, and we have to understand one thing. Sometimes people would look at someone and say, in an organization, we have a meeting, you are going to be with me in that meeting. When you say you are going to be with me in that meeting, you are going to be exposed to information. But you are not welcome for just my funny reason. You're not going to be there. And when you exclude someone, based on the fact that, you just feel better with this person, what happens? That exclusion leads to frustration. That frustration pushes that person away. So, people sometimes bring people into their little central circle. And you find that in an organization, you have a central circle and a peripheral circle. And the peripheral circle, what do you think is going on with them? They're not feeling good by being here. They want to leave. At the end of the day, they think about it and say, I'm not even involved in anything going on here, I gotta go. And then you wonder why people are leaving. So, I want to talk about the voice that stayed with me. And this is I lead an organization in Illinois, central Illinois, but it's now expanded to the whole of Illinois. It's called Men Engaged in Nursing, MEN for short. And we mentor young men. We try to stabilize them, try to bring them into the pipeline, just try to kind of, expand, men involved in nursing, because we believe in one thing. If you think about the shortage, women in nursing is a very matured concept, okay? But men in nursing, is a very, very young concept. We have so much potential. If we want to bring men into nursing, there's a lot of potential. Just think about how many men you can get in and just dilute there, and you would have so many. We're not going to be talking about shortage if we can get men in. So the idea behind our organization is to try to make sure that we encourage men, make them see why they should be in nursing and why they can stay in nursing. Because the role-based and gender-based and culture-based issues are, they're melting away now. People don't look at it that way anymore. And this person came to me, one of my mentees, and he's a nurse now. He said, I do not mind being the only man on the unit. I just do not want to feel like I'm alone on the unit. Being and feeling, two different things. He's there, but is he feeling a part of that organization? And that's where we come in as leaders. We want to make sure that a person, wherever they're from, and remember that I'm talking about men in nursing, there's cultural issues there, there's racial issues, and there's so many reasons why people will feel like a minority, gender issues and all that, where they feel like a minority in an organization. So the question is, how do we make them feel belonged into that unit? It's very, very important. Representation and support are two different things. So sometimes you see people they raise someone and say, you are going to be the spokesperson for this. You are going to be this. And then the person feel like, well, they're giving me something to do. But the question is he supported? Is she supported? No. If you don't support someone, you set them up for failure. And we do that a lot. When you see someone succeeding, it's because they have been supported or they're being supported somehow. Presence can still feel lonely. Some people feel welcomed in an organization, and we welcome them with open arms, but they're not developed. We just put them in there and say, go, And they're churning and churning, and eventually they look around and there's nobody. And they feel alone. So those are leadership questions that we need to answer. So let's talk about solutions now. We've talked about the problem. We've talked about what causes all these issues and turnaround and everything. So let's talk about the solutions. One of the things that are very important to do is always have an awareness, right? Awareness without design changes nothing, though. If you're aware of something, but you're not designing something, you're not designing a solution for it, you're not solving a problem. Oh, we know that people churn because of this. We know that people feel exhausted, they feel tired, they want to go. Well, we know that. What do we do to make sure that they feel differently? That's where design comes in. Concern without structure would not retain. Oh, I understand you, I heard you, okay? And nothing happens. I heard you, yeah. Let's do a survey. And you do a survey and you get all this good information, and what happens? The survey you don't feel anything came out of the survey. Recently we had, there was this drive in my organization. It's a very big organization. We have about 13 hospitals and their doctor's office is really very big. And we do these general surveys. And there was this year when we had a new CEO. And he was like, well, you know what? We're going to do a survey. This time, this survey is different. It's different. Everybody is going to get heard. Say what you got to do. And they pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And they had a very high rate of return, close to 80%. And everybody said a lot of things. But then a year went, and most of the things you talked about did not change. We did the survey again. And the survey for this year, well, guess what happened? The rate was super low. Because people started to feel like, well, the things that I raised were not addressed. And the truth is that in my organization, they had to go waddle through a very, very serious issue. Okay? And while they're doing that, unfortunately, the survey and the input that people were putting in slid back a little bit. And the communication was a little lacking because of all the things they had to go through. And so, when communication was improved, people started to now see that some things that we asked for was done, we just didn't know. And then the confidence started to come back. It's not because they were neglected, it was because they felt like their concern was not heard. That was why the participation rate was going down. So, is it good? Is it okay to just kind of throw out a survey and not make it intentional? Intentional means that you put out that survey with an intention to do something with it. That is the perception that people had, that they thought was going on. Because they didn't see much going on, they felt like, well, this is not intentional. It was one of those things that they give to us and decided to react to it. But the organization actually had intention behind it. So you have to make sure that when you're putting things like that together, that you're putting in you put intention in it and you follow it up. Leaders must stop hoping for organic growth. Oh, it's okay. People will come in and apply for it, and let them go. That's okay. We'll get someone else. No, it should not be happening. Build deliberate systems for support, visibility, belonging, and advancement. Okay. Did I go forward or backward? I think I went forward. All right. So, what does intentional leadership look like? And I talked about that just a minute ago. Being intentional, means that you have a structured purpose. You want to do something. So you have a structured purpose, you have clear expectations, and your plan is to develop people. That is intentional leadership. Some of the other things that are important, equitable opportunities. So, meaning that you look at your group, you have the majority, and you have minorities. And you cannot discount your minorities because they prop up the majority. The majority is nothing without a minority. Okay? So, audit visibility, review stretch roles, check access. Meaning that if you're a nurse manager and you're having a huddle, there are people that are quiet and they just sit down and say, if I say something, it's not going to be heard, so I'm just going to keep quiet today. But you give them visibility. Say, hey, you, what do you think? And they feel like, me? Oh, me? All right, yeah, okay, well, I mean, I feel this, I feel that. And the best ideas, in my experience, the best ideas that I've ever had to turn things around are usually from that person that doesn't say much. Because they're cooking it and cooking it and cooking it and it's in there. The person that says everything just blots it out, sometimes it's not that deep, but the person that keeps quiet is cooking stuff, they think about things, and when they say something, so you go like, oh my God, never thought about that. So sometimes it's always good to just kind of entertain people and let them bring their opinion out so that you would be able to, you'll be more empowered because you'll be able to see things from a more diverse perspective. Transparent pathways. Make growth visible. If there's growth in the organization, make it visible. Okay? Just don't hide the process, that the pathway to leadership. Don't hide it. Make it very clear. Someone comes in, if I'm in an organization and I know that if I do 1, 2, and 3, I'll go in this direction. Why not? I want to stay, right? Because I know what to do. But when it's always about someone just becoming something without anybody knowing how they got there and everything, you keep asking yourself, what's the point being here, right? So remove ambiguity and don't favor insiders. Very important. Culture and language reset. Try your best to change the language. Be intentional with your language. Shape micro signals and reinforce belonging, which means that when you're having that, when you're having the huddle, always think about how you present things. What are the languages that you're using? Are you being inclusive? Are you trying to make people understand how to interact with you? Shave off all your micro signals and try your very best to make sure that everything is plain and clear. Early identification of leaders is very, very important. Don't wait 7 years to identify. Identify immediately. You see someone that's doing well, mold them. Do not put them on the spot. Mold them so that they can become the leader that you want. So, what this looks like on a Monday morning for you, chief nursing officers, ask, who are we losing in 12 to 24 months? That is how you catch turnover, not when they leave. It's when you think about it. Who is checking the boxes? Directors, audit your habits. Who do you call first? You're in a huddle. Who do you call first? Do you tend to call that person that seems to have that opinion? Or those people that are quiet and they know what they're doing, but they don't know how to say it out? Who do you overlook? Managers. Ask early. Ask early career nurses and say, okay, what are your concerns? Let me know. They're new, but they have information. Are you being supported? Are you growing? Do you feel seen? Feeling seen, very important. And academic leaders, I'm talking to myself now, prepare students for reality. Belonging and mentorship matter. You want to get them ready for what they would find. Do not tell them it's going to be all rosy, don't worry about it, everything's okay. That is not right. Seriously, you have to tell them the reality. I teach a leadership course now for final year students, and I let them know, look, you guys are going to be managers. And when we talk, one person raised her hand and she asked me, you guys keep talking about leadership and we're all leaders. Who's the follower if we're all leaders? I was like, well, we're all leaders in our own way. You think that you're not leading. You have a group, you have a team of patients. You have a team of CNAs and LPNs are working with you. Do you think you're a leader? She says, yeah, I think so. You're a leader. The LPN is a leader. Leadership is looked at as a structure, but really it's not. It's actually, it's an everyday thing for everybody. We lead in some way. If you think about it, you are actually leading in some way. So belonging without tokenism is very important. And tokenism there means that, I'll put you there and, so that they would say we have a woman in the board of directors. So you stand there as a woman and you ask yourself, what's the point? I mean, I'm here as a woman. That's all I represent. You're not going to be contributing because, hey, that's what you represent. So tokenism is we have to make sure that we build belonging and not tokenism. We have to make sure of that. And academic environments, as I said, they're workforce engines. We have to make sure that we're building leaders. And when we build leaders that we know we're shaping their confidence. We're shaping their identity so that when they get into that environment, it's going to be tough, it's going to be difficult, but they have what it takes to survive in there. We forsake typecasting. Typecasting is when you tell someone, "Oh, you're going to be you're going to be good in the ICU. Just go ahead, just go to the ICU. Don't worry about it." "Oh, you're going to be a mother baby because I don't think you're going to kill an adult if you go." Someone actually been told that before. If you handle adults, you kill them. Just go to mother baby, okay? And it's just like, yeah, I'm going to be mother baby all my life, So typecasting sometimes it's not the best, and weak mentorship can seed misfit. So I just want to leave you with this, and I'm not gone yet, but I'm just getting to my head to the point where I'm going. If you think about it, 12 to 24 months is the period that it takes people to decide if they're going to be leaving or staying. 12 to 24 months. We talked about the 5 drivers. And Well, 90 days, what does that have to do? It's the time for you to implement a strategy to combat turnover. You track turnover, you monitor early career retention, you watch for intentional promotions. Intentional promotions. You measure mentorship participation, and you review demographic trends. What are the demographic trends in my organization? How do I measure mentorship participation? What are the internal promotion systems that we have? Are we deliberate? Are we just kind of grabbing the person that feels good and say, go forward? If you do not measure it, you are not leading it. You gotta measure it. So, what does intentional leadership change? 3 to 5 years. 3.5 years retention. Nurses in burnout reduction programs have stayed that long. Is that better than 1 to 2 years? Yes, it is. We're getting somewhere, right? And 20 to 30% lower turnover. Just imagine how many nurses we keep in the nursing environment by reducing churn by 20 to 30%. If you multiply that by the figures that I gave you before, see how much money the organization is going to save by just focusing on retention. You belong here. I see the potential in you. Let's talk about where you want to grow. Internalize that. You belong here. If you have that in your mind, then you know how to deal with people. You tell them, you let them feel that they belong. Very, very important. You show them that they have a potential. And then let's talk about how you grow. If you tell that to me, I'm not leaving your organization. So some things that we need to know about retention is an operational strategy. But the most important thing is that even small turnover cuts, you have to improve stability, improve costs, and protect the pipeline development. Retention is not a soft issue. If you have good workforce stability, 5 things that will go into it. Mentorship is very important. Equitable opportunity is very important. Transparent pathways is very important. Culture reset, very important. And early leadership identification, meaning that you see a person, you identify them, not push them, not put them in the spot, but try to develop them in the direction of leadership. And they will feel it, and they want to stay. So, some of the decisions that build stability happen every day. You notice, you interrupt. What quietly drives people away? That's you interrupting and saying, hey, let's pull back a little bit and ask ourselves that question. What is making them want to go? And then you get to support and provide opportunity and develop by design. That is when you're doing something. When you're building is when you're doing something. So, if you improve men's participation in nursing, you're improving minorities' involvement in nursing. And if you're successful with that, you'll be successful with every other minority that you handle. So today I'm going to leave you with that thought in mind. Retention is power. Please make sure that you concentrate on that and you build manageable retention processes within your organization. Those are my references. Thank you very much.
Questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen any literature linking magnet certification as well as clinical ladders to retention? They say it, but I've not really seen it.
So, thanks for that question. That's a very beautiful question. Magnet certification and retention. And my hospital is going through magnet right now. There's something about being a magnet hospital that is funny to me, I'd say. Sometimes we go through the motions. we get managers and say, okay, managers, and let's get into magnet. But what is being what's being a magnet or a hospital? There's some principles. Those principles, if they exist in the organization, definitely that helps retention. And if you've seen, I have seen a lot of papers, a lot of scholarships, scholars saying things like magnet equals retention, and that's why magnet is being touted as that thing that we need to help retention. There are so many of them out there, but the question is that, is it really magnet certification that makes that happen? It's actually the magnet status mentality, which a lot of organizations do not have. They just get a manager and say, check the boxes for us. Let's become magnet. And so when you are doubting if magnet ever produces retention, that's exactly why it is. So if we're being honest, you would see papers that would say magnet works, and you would see the ones that say magnet don't work. The reason why some of them say magnet do not work is because people check the boxes and they say, we're magnet certified right now, and they're still doing the same old thing. Just checking the boxes and making sure they are, compliant. But the magnet mentality, though, I can assure you that magnet mentality, if it's in the organization, it does move. It does help turnover.
It's your
And there are papers. Yes, it's the culture. It's the culture that has to be in. Yes, and there are papers that support that. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I think in listening to your presentation and just in nursing in general, and you talk about recruitment and retention, I think what you said is important. But at least in organizations that I've seen that have high nurse satisfaction, high retention, it's really an organization that creates a culture where nurses feel valued and appreciated. That at the very top of the organization, they recognize that their patient outcomes and what they're trying to do as an organization is really driven by nursing and nursing satisfaction. There's a direct correlation between clinical outcomes and nursing satisfaction. So it is important for men to feel valued and appreciated and integrated, but that's really what we have to try to do within the whole organization, is to make sure that people are recognized, and they're recognized as sort of fulfilling a higher purpose.
And I agree with you. Because if you think about it, when I talked about men in nursing, I said it's a lens. I chose men because that's a very small group that you can actually, they're in the budding phase, And so if you want to think back to how nursing started and everything, you can look at how men are joining nursing now and look at what's going on. Just kind of trying to focus on that does not mean that is going to be the driver for, an improved situation for the organization or reduced turnover. But the fact is that when you do that within that small organization, which we know has a potential to grow. Okay, women in nursing, as I said, is a matured, system, matured thinking, concept. But men in nursing, if you are able to grow that, knowing that there's input out there, and you are able to change something, and now you see that growth, you translate that to any other demographic, it'll work. So the point of that is, if we want to improve how women go into nursing now, we'll keep trying, because women already know how to get into nursing. But men, if we're able to expand that rank, we know that whatever worked for them, if we apply it to any other demographic, women and minorities and majority within the system, we know that we're going to have valuable and measurable growth. That is the point of that.
Anyone else? I have a couple of thoughts. I really liked your statement of, you're dealing with the smoke and not the fire. And as you were going through the stages that people go through and that we're starting to disengage and we're planning ahead of time, probably 5 people's faces flashed in my mind. You know, really. And early on in my career, my face went past me as well. I think that also, you know, having men in nursing is not just, you know, you address tokenism, which is a very critical point. Within our profession, you know, we've seen DEI dismantled across the country. Within nursing, it's not just an issue of how many of these people do we have, how many of those people that we have. If we are striving for patient-centered care, then we have to realize that some of our patients will not have a female nurse, will not have a male nurse. And what men bring to nursing is refreshing and augments what we do as women in nursing. And I would like to see us eventually get to the point where we're just all nurses. We're not females, we're not males, we're not whoever we are, we're nurses. And that's where the solidarity comes from.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad that somehow some people flashed in your mind, because when we catch these things early, we can fix the problem, not treating it when it's all done.
The other thing is a lot of organizations will say, we promote from within. I'm here to tell you that is not always a good thing.
Yes.